Hey, this is Ralph, and in this video I'm going to use the if function to zero out the money cells in the rows after the loan is paid off. Okay, so we left off before creating an if function for the payment number and an if function for the date so that these values zero out after the loan is paid off. So let's try this with some of the money rows now. My loan parameters are over here in the top left, and we can see for my 10-month loan it does zero out in the 10th row. Beyond that, I want to go to 0. I don't want to show negatives for the beginning balance. So I'm going to work on this on the payment row just after the last one. So this is going to be equals if the beginning balance, if the ending balance for the previous row is less than 0.01 or less than 1 penny, then I'm going to display a 0. Otherwise, it's simply going to be the ending balance from the previous row. Of course, that one zeroes out, and you'll see that when I autofill this down, all of those others values will zero out. And if I click on this cell and autofill it upward to the second row, not the very first, those stay as they should. I'm going to do something similar for these others. Technically, our interest is already looking pretty good because the interest is based off the beginning balance. I'm also going to go ahead and select all of my cells here, and I'll put them into an accounting format. I'll just use currency so that they look a little bit more consistent. But let's do something similar for payment. The payment cell is actually going to be a little bit more complicated than the previous ones because there are going to be times when I don't need to make the full payment. This is especially true if I start making some extra payments. So that we can see this happen, I'm going to go ahead and throw in a $100 monthly extra payment. And you'll see the impact of this is it really makes for an unusual ending balance over here. But let's see what we can do to fix the payment cell. Once again, I'm going to work on the payment cell for the row just after things start to go south, so to speak. So this is going to be an if function, and what I'm curious about is if the ending balance from the previous row plus the interest from the current row is less than my calculated payment. Now whenever I refer to something over on my inputs, I'm going to make that absolute. I'm curious if the ending balance plus the interest for the previous ending balance, current interest, is less than the calculated payment. If that's true, then I don't want to make a normal calculated payment. I'm simply going to pay whatever the ending balance is plus that interest. Now, what do I do if it's false? Well, if it's false, I'll have to look at something else. If it's false, I'm actually going to do another if function. To make it a little bit easier to look at, I'm going to go ahead and write if, do my opening and closing parentheses, and then I'll do another closing parentheses to close the parent so that we can make sense of this. First, my logical test is for the parent if function, if my previous ending balance plus my current interest is less than the calculated payment, then I'm going to pay my previous ending balance plus my current interest. Otherwise, if it's not, well then I want to look at and find out, is my beginning balance zeroed out? Do I need to start zeroing things out? So I'll do an if my beginning balance is equal to 0, then I'm just going to display a 0. Otherwise, I'm going to display my actual calculated payment. And of course, since I'm referring to my loan input, I'll make that absolute. So let's kind of run through it again. If my ending balance plus my interest is less than the calculated payment, then I'm only going to pay my ending balance plus my interest. Otherwise, I'm curious if my beginning balance is 0. If that's true, then I'm going to have 0 for my payment. If it's not 0, then I'm going to pay my full payment. I'm going to press enter here. I'm going to click on that cell, autofill it down. I'm going to click on this cell and autofill it up. Let me Control Z. I don't want to autofill it all the way to the top. I'll autofill it to the second row. Now you see that we're starting to get some weirdness, and that's because of this unusual ending balance. So I'm going to do a slight modification to my ending balance calculation. So currently, I can do it up here in this top one, top payment. It's F2 minus K2, which for me is the beginning balance minus the principal. I want to make sure that we don't get those fractional cent results. So I'm going to tweak this one. Let me scroll to the right a bit. If F2 minus K2 is less than 0.01, then I'm just going to display a 0 for the ending balance. If it's not less than 0.01, then I'm going to do F2 minus K2, the normal formula. I'm going to press enter. It's not going to have a shocking difference there, but now when I autofill this down, we're going to start to see some stuff occur. Now, with my extra payment, things start to get paid off, and you can see that that payment row beyond the payoff row is zeroed out properly. Doesn't mean this is 100% correct, because we do still have a couple of mistakes to fix up, but we can fix those with our extra payment rows. Now in the next video, we're going to work on that extra payment column. We either want a partial extra payment, a full extra payment, or no extra payment.